Good morning. I'd like to call the village board meeting for February 25th for our CIP meeting to order with roll call, please.
Weinhammer.
Here.
McAlpine.
Here.
Cavelli.
Here.
Walrath.
Here.
Collier.
Here.
Would you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you. Now moving to the open forum where the public is invited to make an issue-oriented comment on any matter of public concern, not otherwise on the agenda. I'm not aware of anybody that wants to address the board, so we will close open forum at 9 o'clock. Moving to the topic at hand, a discussion on the fiscal year 2024 through fiscal year 2028 capital improvement program.
Great. Thank you very much, Mayor. And trustees, thank you for joining us on a Saturday morning here to discuss our capital improvement program. Today, we have a couple speakers that I'm just going to introduce for today's workshop. Leading our discussion is going to be our Assistant to the Administrator, Courtney Sage, our Finance Director, Kelly Brainerd, and our Assistant to the Public Works Director, Tim Bessiner. But I'll kick us off here with a little bit of agenda and overview. So first of all, we'll go through today's workshop, our schedule, our objectives, our summary of all of our total projects and recommended improvements, as well as some proposed ideas we have for the future here in Cary. We're dividing it up into subsets and groups categorized by the different functions and locations within the village. And then we'll go over a total overview of our 5-year total CIP costs and compare those to our existing revenue sources. And then we'll follow up with our questions and comments. And as always, we encourage you to stop us at any time if you have any questions, and obviously we'll be able to answer them. We have some backup here as well. We have our brain trust of our department heads and specialists here from Public Works, Police, and Community Development as well. Next slide, please. Thanks. Schedule-wise, we are going to be working off of our typical approach to divide this into 3 meetings. First meeting today is the CIP overview, and the next we will be going over our review of all of our funds, and with a focus particularly on general funds. That'll be our next workshop on Saturday, March 25th, and then we'll conclude with the overall final consideration of our budget at the first April meeting on April 4th. So capital projects, as you know, are some of the largest expenditures that we have in our annual budget. So in terms of objectives for the CIP workshop, first and foremost, we use this as a tool to inform the public and our village board of all the different improvements that we foresee in our near future. And we use this workshop in particular to get feedback and answer questions from you and the public before we finalize our budget process. For this meeting, we'll have some focused discussions on 4 of our key areas of need in the near future. Economic development is one of the new areas that it's not new to our focus, but we are going to be stressing it and highlighting it, particularly in our capital program. Infrastructure maintenance, which is typically the bread and butter of our work here on the capital side, and will continue to be for the foreseeable future. And of course, our high-profile projects that are going on in our downtown. And you'll see some of the highlights and preview of what's to come in the near future. And as always, today's meeting is for discussion only, so there's no final decisions at this time. We have the other 2 workshops moving forward to make any other adjustments and proposed changes. So right now we're looking particularly for feedback, comments, and not just on things you might want to see changed, but things that you particularly are excited about and supportive of. So we want to hear the full range of feedback and comments. So why complete a capital plan? Well, because Ben Franklin said so, right? But nonetheless, it is an important process that is utilized by many municipalities and agencies in terms of prioritizing needs and making sure that we focus our resources, which are often limited, to our most important and prioritized projects. It is a very important planning tool for us. It gives our staff a guide to then ensure that these projects are implemented in a timely and structured manner, and then which then has the benefit of reducing the likelihood of emergency changes and expenses. So this year, obviously, our capital improvement program is one of the hubs of many different facets for what we do as a village. It lines very, very well with all of our strategic priorities that we've been moving forward on. Things from community image, economic development, financial sustainability, all of our infrastructure maintenance, public safety, and even workforce development within our staff. So looking back on the last fiscal year, some of the highlights from our last CIP that we've accomplished. Moving forward on right now as we speak are the wastewater treatment plant fine screen raking system. All the equipment is starting to line up and the installation is going to be moving forward very shortly and finished before the fiscal year. So I know our wastewater team and John Stein's folks are very, very excited about getting that important piece of equipment in place to definitely enhance our operations. Downtown, which I won't go too far into that, but the design was completed, and you're going to see a great sneak preview of that in the coming slides. Economic development. Like I mentioned, that's a continued focus for the village now and moving forward. And with the last CIP, we were able to engage a economic development specialist. So many of you have met Dan Gardner, who is working with Brian Simmons and his team to continue to get the word out about Cary and help get us on the map for future development and opportunities for future growth. Also in Brian's arena is a great improvement to enhance and improve our permit and inspection system. So now we now have a modern permitting system that is not only helping his department, but will be expanded in the near future with some other improvements to other departments that staff will go over shortly. And on the PW side, the North Commuter lot was resurfaced this last year. Not only was the pavement refreshed, but we were also able to reconfigure it slightly and add an additional amount of 6-hour downtown parking right along the core of our downtown where it is most needed and most convenient. And then Steve Kopaz and his team have been doing a wonderful job improving some of the facilities at the PW facility with his in-house team and a great eye for detail. We now have a refreshed office and break room area that now has been reconfigured to actually improve our ability to do training at the same time. And then lastly, technology, GIS implementation. Courtney's been leading the charge on getting our mapping improved and accessible, so we not only have better access to that data in-house by staff, but moving forward we'll have some output to the public as well. Then here in summary, it's going to be a very busy year moving forward, and you're going to hear, again, much more detail about that in a few minutes. But you can just see, just visually, this next fiscal year, we're proposing a great number of construction and design projects that are much needed across all the different disciplines within our village, from water, sanitation, infrastructure, facilities, a lot of amazing, exciting things going on in the village. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to staff to give us the overview.
Mayor, Village Board, good morning. So we'll start right in on the most exciting part, right? Which is downtown improvement.
Yeah.
So even just from 2022, we've done some pretty cool things here in the downtown. We've installed the new Cary sign. We completed the demolition of the old station, installed new fencing, added those picnic tables in to create that temporary outdoor seating just until our depot plaza is complete. And like Eric mentioned, we were able to also add those 16 parking spots in the North Commuter lot. But now it's on to the next phase, right? And that's our streetscape project. So that project was awarded earlier this year. Construction is set to begin late spring. It's a $2.3 million investment into our downtown, and over 50% of that cost will be covered by the Rebuild Illinois Bond Fund. And just as a note, the website is now live for this project. Earlier this year, letters were provided to downtown businesses, letting them know not only about the project, but so they have access to this website. A second letter will be sent to those downtown businesses soon. And as a note, Dan Gardner, as well as the Christopher and Burke engineer, will act as the primary liaisons for this project. So they'll be in contact with downtown businesses and residents for any of their questions. Continuing on with, we'll call it the facelift of our downtown, staff is proposing $30,000 over the next 2 years for new holiday decorations. The slide here just provides examples of what could be purchased, whether it's garland across West Main Street. You see these very large ornaments or very large Christmas lights up there in the corner as well.
Can I just say I'm really excited about that? You said you want us to share. Very excited about that.
The next big project is the Depot Plaza. We're anticipating to begin this project in 2024. The board may remember we were chosen by the RTA for the Access to Transit grant. So as one of the projects chosen, we will be included in CMAP's CMAC application, which is to be submitted this fall. During the fall, we will be notified of our final approved funding amount, as well as what our required local match will be. We're estimating 80% of this project will be paid for through the grant. One thing to note here as well, you'll see we're carrying over the cost of the land acquisition. That's to purchase where the Depot Plaza would be. We're just bringing that total over. This is a concept for your review. It's a potential enhancement of Al Fresco Alley. You're going to see two kiosk styles here on this slide. These could provide an opportunity for restaurants or businesses not currently located in the downtown to utilize Al Fresco Alley. It also provides our residents more options when they visit our downtown. We're looking for feedback on if you'd be interested in adding this to the 5-year plan. The cost, as you can see, is between $20,000 to $60,000 each. Another upcoming purchase that would be in fiscal year 2025 are these modular vehicle barriers. We would purchase these to use during our events such as Cary Cruise Night, Mary Cary, and potentially the return of Main Street Fest. You'll see there is a rental option, $3,600 per event. If you assume 12 cruise nights, Main Street Fest, and Mary Cary, you're looking at roughly $50,000 a year to rent these. As the board may remember, we've started Phase 1 engineering this fiscal year for the Maplewood Access Road. We will continue Phase 1 into next fiscal year. There's about $190,000 left in that contract. We've listed the potential costs for Phase 2 and construction, which is roughly $7 million. These are listed as future expenses, as we would want to time this project with a potential development of Maplewood. Staff will, of course, continue to explore funding opportunities for construction, such as the Surface Transportation Program. And you'll see here, the project website is also live. Here's some other downtown and safety improvements. We've included in the out years the extension of High Road, which would be between West Main Street into the commuter parking lot. Also, staff recently met with IDOT to discuss the intersection at US Route 14 and Main Street. We're hoping that through this road safety review, we can plan for improvements at this intersection with IDOT providing a cost share. At this time, staff is also proposing to budget $50,000 over the next 2 fiscal years for reviving Main Street Fest. Now, it's been spread over 2 years because it would return in the fall of 2024 after we've completed our downtown projects. And this cost is based on the village solely taking responsibility of the festival. It was based on a quote from Big Buzz, and a large portion of that cost is staffing the event. So we'll switch over to the other large project, which is at Rotary Park, and that's the shelter. So the shelter construction will begin this summer. The shelter itself has been placed on order, and we're very happy to see this project come to fruition, in part thanks to the donations from the Cary Grove Rotary Club, as well as the Glenicki family, who donated through the Community Foundation. You'll see this project is $489,000. Staff is also proposing to complete the design for paving the trails next fiscal year. We've placed the actual paving itself as future unfunded. Well, we intend to continue to apply for grant opportunities that could assist with the development of our park, including paving these trails. Tim, later in this presentation, will provide an example of how we could pave a portion of those trails. You can also see here, we've left a segment, which is the segment in red, just as a possibility to leave that as gravel.
So if the board does have any feedback on opinions on or preferences, whether you'd like to see long-term the entire trail system paved or portions of it, at staff level, we have received feedback kind of supporting both. So it is one of those very dynamic opinions of whether or not we want to see that paved or not. So we look forward to any feedback you might have on that particular topic.
Do you want us to get feedback during the presentation, or do you want us to wait, or what's everyone's thought on that?
Yeah, I was wondering the
From an
same thing.
interactive standpoint.
Yeah.
I know.
Either's
Chime in.
fine.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because you're doing such a great job, I don't want to interrupt you when you're on a roll, but,
Interrupt. Just if you see something that sparks your
well,
interest.
let's go back to Rotary
Yeah.
Park. Because I think everyone's got opinions on that. Jen, you want to
Well,
start?
not this so much, but you asked a couple questions about opinions, and it was like a little bit earlier in the presentation, where you
downtown?
wanted feedback. I think so, yes.
Okay. This is the kiosk.
Was it before that even? I'm not sure. There's a lot of good stuff going on.
There is.
Was it downtown decorations, perhaps?
Whatever, do you recall the first thing that you asked our opinion on? I'm not sure.
Probably downtown
Probably
decorations.
downtown. Yeah, it was probably this. Sorry.
It's okay. So,
So let's chat about it.
okay, so you're asking about just opinions on downtown decorations? That's what was that?
Yeah, because we have
Sure,
such
yeah,
a,
we provided these examples here, but
Okay.
if there's something particular the board is interested in us looking into, we can do that.
and we have a very new setup, obviously. So moving forward, the idea was that moving forward with the same decorations we've done in the past doesn't have quite the same effect. We have, with the catenary lighting system, a lot of lights going on just in the normal time of year. So we didn't want to just rely on adding lights on the poles like we typically have. So we tried to look at other options that might complement the lights that are already there, like the wreaths you see here that could be strung over the overhead system or the oversized ornament type of decoration setup. But if there's a preference for, like I said, the style, we don't have to decide today. But the key point was that we were looking to, in the near term, add a little bit more money this time around to account for the fact that we have to decorate differently. Otherwise, it would be a small amount of decorations and may not have quite the impact on such the grand scale that we have with downtown.
Right. We don't, because it's going to be a little bit busier looking with all the new stanchions and the lights, and we're kind of toning it down a little bit, making it look a little bit more, I use the word like more of an elegant looking, very well thought out, rather than tchotchke stuff.
I mean, just from a personal standpoint, I was not a big fan of the blue lights down there, so to speak, the cool light look. So I think when we go to Cantonary, that would look absolutely awful, so I'm glad that we're doing this. I don't have an answer yet as to what, but I'm excited to see these as some options.
Right. Well, again, if you see something that sparks an interest, make a note, and we could talk about it in your travels in other communities. I mean, these are things that, these are fun to do. We don't have to do, but, it's nice to plan for things like this to celebrate the downtown. We're, as you all know, we're spending a lot of money downtown, and we want to make sure that we hit it right, especially, the holidays. Our downtown is always flooded during the holidays, and we really want to do it right. So some of these things are kind of fun. We took a bit of a hit with the carry sign, but that's turning out to be exactly what we want, the photo ops and that stuff. So if we were to add some of this larger ornamental type stuff, it would be a great photo op. People, where is that in Cary? And then you start seeing it. Then people come down to do that, and then they see what we have to offer. So, think about what you feel would be a good representation of what we want the downtown to look like during the holidays.
And what's the timeline for the permanent installed lighting? The catenary lighting is 2025?
No, that is part of the first phase of our construction.
That's
So
this
you'll see
year.
that
Okay,
this
so but
summer.
the point that I'll make is these are all wonderful things to try to envision, but until we see the permanent structures up, I think we would be doing a whole lot of speculating, and if we're speculating with $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, I would rather, and personally, in my opinion, I'd rather wait see what's up, what it looks like, and then quote-unquote shop for things after that, so we can find something that fits with what we've already got.
Exactly, and these are meant to be thought-provoking, just kind of give an idea where staff is heading, the things that they've seen in their travels or through various vendors that approach us. So, think about these things.
Would the board be interested in looking at decorations after even the Depot Plaza is done, or just the Main Street streetscape?
Main Streets.
I think the Main Street.
That first part?
To
Okay.
start with, do we know the light, this is off topic kinda, but do we know what the lighting color is of the new overhead lighting, and will it match the street lamps? Is everything uniform and the same?
We have specs from our bid plans, and then we have made the comment to the contractor in the shop drawing review that we do want to lean towards the warmer white hue. And Steve, so you perked up. Do you recall what the response was on that? I believe we are able to get that
So it'll be a close
that
match
range
to the news?
to match. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's important from the continuity standpoint. And I agree 100% with Rick. I think these are great, but you can't envision, we're not going to spend money without knowing exactly how it turns out. But I think the idea of being able to enhance, because you have to keep in mind, people are also going to see it driving, coming down the train. You see, when they stop, the train stops, you're going to see, hey, look at what's going on downtown Cary. So I want it to look really nice, as everybody does.
Do we want to talk about the vendor kiosks?
Absolutely.
All right.
I would be in favor of those kind of items if, for a couple different things. Number one, having temporary options lends itself to more things like Main Street Fest and cruise nights where you can have different attractions for people. I would not be a fan if they're permanent. We need to be able to move them to different locations. For example, if somebody is working with the bank and wants to do a festival or a small thing just in their parking lot, Cary Ale House wants to have a complimentary vendor in their parking lot, we need to be able to provide these things. And I think it needs to be a revenue neutral. If we're buying something for $60,000, we better find a way to recoup that $60,000 through its use, not just through the providing of it. If we're providing this item for somebody to bring and sell their wares in, they're leasing a space from us. So there needs to be a long-term return on investment for those purchases as well.
How would the lease be approached? Is it yearly, monthly? Have you thought about
By
that or
use?
no?
Probably by use. One of these things too, if you remember early on, I think we talked about it last year when we were first developing the community plaza. We could have one of these over at the community plaza too for various events. We see with the outdoor music and that thing where you have a vendor will come in and, kind of a package deal where you have music there and you have like a restaurant or, serving drinks in our social district. So these are things that I think that would be very impactful. It's expensive, but, we'd have to see what interest would be for other people bringing it in.
I can envision us working with our other government partners. Park District could utilize these for special events at the pool. School districts for any of the things they might use. So there should be a Cary community outreach to other organizations looking to utilize something if we're going to put this investment into it.
Again, and then we, thinking, long-term, what we'll do at Cary Lake. I mean, these are things that could be moved down to Cary Lake to have, are going to go into our second year with the Rotary with their beer festival. I mean, something like this to bring down there is an opportunity.
I think it's a great idea. I like the forward thinking of it. I like being kind of leaders on stuff like this. So I agree 100% with what Trustee Dudick is, with Trustee Walrath, Rick's confused, sorry, what Rick was saying here, and that they have to be portable and usable and have some type of agreement, because there's a liability. I want to make sure of a liability, all that kind of stuff. I'm sure that's just legal stuff that we can look at, but I think it's great for people if they want to it's kind of like a pop-up style, right? It could be someone new that says, hey, I want to try something before I invest in coming to Cary. You never know. Someone might say, hey, will this go over in this town, and is there a place to put it? We could reach out to a lot of different avenues to, this is cutting edge, and I'm excited about it.
Does that cost range from the 20 to 60,000? 20 is like bare bones, and 60 it's ready to cook in and use? Is that the concept kind of this?
Yeah, some of the vendors that we've looked at, the opportunities, these are all storage container based. The $20,000 range is more of a shell for a kind of a pop-up retail type operation. The $60,000 version is it's still a shell, but has the opportunity for hookups for refrigerators or more of the pop-up brewery style kind of, or
So these would be.
beverage
so
style.
Saying that, you're talking about a longer-term lease when they use these, correct? Because somebody's gonna have to furnish it with equipment?
Possibly. There'd be a lot of details to work out in terms of you mentioned the structure of it, whether it's by use or is it by time period. But correct, if we were to make this a revenue neutral type of approach, we would have to work out a lot of details that the staff could dig into. So if this is something that we would like to pursue, I guess we're hearing there's a great interest. Trustee Cavelli, you look like you might have some. I like it too. Then we can explore it further. The question I have for the board today then is it something you want us to move in the near term of our CIP or explore further in detail for an out year? Putting you on the
Well, I
spot,
see
but
it's
you don't have to
not-
answer
obviously
today.
It's a hard one to say what we want to.
These pictures are from places it's already happening, so to get
Mm-hmm.
feedback and cost shouldn't be that difficult.
Right.
I take it?
Correct.
I think it's something that we should step up, you know, when we're
If it's neutral,
really going to
sure.
try to emphasize the downtown.
It would be nice to have this, to that point, Mayor, it'd be nice to have this idea vetted and ready to go when we do get to that point that the
Correct.
downtown
Yep.
construction is
Yes.
done.
I agree.
Okay, we will
Move forward.
make an adjustment for near term and
Yes,
plan
near
some more
term.
details before we finalize. Okay, great.
Can we go back to like the train station, the new depot area? So I really like this a lot. The fireplace area, that's toward the east end, right? Isn't that gonna be like a fireplace
Yes,
downtown?
it's-
Along Main Street, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. I would just like, I would like to just see that a lot bigger, because I do think that's gonna be a great gathering area, and I would just like to see that just be bigger in size. And even if we have to scale back on Christmas decorations for a little bit, I think having something long-term, because once it's there, we're not gonna adjust it, so I would rather see something a little larger.
The fireplace itself?
Like that, the seating area,
Okay.
yeah, just like a nice, big area.
It's a little hard to see because of the angle of the photo, and that's my fault. But
And maybe that's not doing the size properly
Yeah.
in the photo. I don't know, it just seems rather small. And I just look at, there's a lot of space there. That's something, you know, you think of like the Mary Carey Parade, like afterward, I could see people down there hanging out by the fire, getting hot chocolate, one of those new little stands, and I don't know, I just think that'd be great.
I think, have you seen the one in downtown Algonquin?
No.
This one, I believe, is bigger, much bigger than that one.
All right,
yes, they have to balance the size a bit because just from the safety factor, you don't want to make it too large to where someone can climb into it and things like that. But like I mentioned, the angle's a little deceiving. That wall you see on the bottom of the photo, it's a curved sitting wall. So it's intended to frame it so that you could gather around it along with the auxiliary seating of tables that we might add there.
Like,
So
how
those,
many people could you potentially seat in that area, do you think?
I would say just all the way around it, we're talking dozens.
Okay, so maybe it's just the size that's throwing, or
Yeah,
maybe it's
the scale. of
The
angle,
perspective,
yeah.
We can send the board the downtown area, the Depot Plaza from different angles, just so you can
Okay.
see it. in
Sure,
different
I'd
areas.
appreciate that. The only other question I had about the downtown area was about those barriers. So are those, the way those are built, are they able to stop vehicles? Is that the purpose of them? Okay, fantastic.
Maybe I can let Chief Finland kind of comment on that. His staff has done a lot of good review of those with the vendors as we've vetted that.
Yeah, it's a local vendor out of Wakanda, and there was a suggestion that maybe we go in as a consortium with other communities, but everyone wants on the same day, so it's not going to work that way.
I do like these though.
Didn't we borrow these for the last Mary Carey Parade?
Yeah, actually, it was a demonstration, or the vendor brought them out just to kind of display them for us to evaluate. And I know that they've been looking at other communities in McHenry, especially on the east side of McHenry County.
Would these be used to block off both sides of West Main? Like down
I
by
think
High
you could-
Road and back all the way to the.
I don't know how many are included in this
Yeah.
65.
It was, I think it was 9.
Eight to
those
nine.
are
Eight,
barriers
eight,
times
yeah. And I think we had 9. We closed off the right turn lane and the Main Street at the crossing, the railroad crossing, but we did not have them at the west side of the parade. We did have a police officer there, but we didn't have the barriers.
And this would be enough, as you can see the configuration here, where we're just, in this case, with the demo, we focused on the 14 side. With our new streetscape project, the sidewalks do narrow in further, so the 9 barriers would actually be enough to close off both ends of Main Street with the new configuration of the roads, if we didn't do it right at 14.
So the 65,000 is 9 barriers, not 8?
It's
It's 8?
Yeah, we were, the demonstration was with 9. But the other part of that is that you have to move them, so there'll be that issue as well.
Do we have to acquire a trailer to do that, or is that all included?
That's there. It's on the bottom, yeah.
Another 25?
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Trailer, okay.
We,
Oh, wow.
we can do it with an existing trailer, but it's a drop trailer, so it's kind of designed to keep these easy to load and unload. We can do it with existing trailers. It would just be a little bit more effort and time. This makes it a little bit of a quicker deployment.
And it'll stop vehicles, cars and small trucks.
I would suggest in this, clearly it's return on investment at the amount of times we're talking about using is there. And I don't want to put any burden considering most of our events are either charities or smaller venues. However, going back to spending 65, or if we get 9 or 10, 70, $80,000, a small fee that would then, if this has a useful life of 10 years or 8 years, then per event, you only have to collect a small fee that then is returned back to a replacement program for this. So I don't want to burden any future events like the cruise night and these other things, but this is something that is very much necessary in today's day and age. It's it's the same kind of cost as deploying our police officers out there. So it's something that we need to try to recoup that cost, considering the event itself is raising funds as well.
Do we want to talk about paving?
Why not? Of course. I'm in favor of paving, especially the yellow portion that hooks up to like Hoffman Park. That's why when people are really out trying to ride with bikes with little kids or something like that, that's a little hard to get traction on that gravel. I like the idea of course, always looking for additional ways to fund it. I know and I don't know if the OSLAD, if we're gonna apply for that again, right? And, you know, maybe we do it in conjunction with different, you know, phase 1, phase 2, but I definitely would like to see the yellow done right away. I think that would be very beneficial for just community connectivity with all of our other paths out there.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Eric, if we're connecting to existing paved rails, you have an opportunity for ADA money as well, if you're making it ADA accessible from one current location paved to down to the new shelter we're planning.
Yeah, we would continue to explore any grant opportunities out there. They come from a very wide range of sources, but yeah, if there's any ability to leverage the benefits, we would obviously do that.
How much of this is unfunded? All of it right now?
All of the paving is unfunded, so we're just proposing designing.
Okay.
And you'll see why we have it in the unfunded in the Rotary Park and Land Conservancy summary shortly.
I want the whole thing paved eventually. That's just me.
I think that's a goal, but I think
Yeah.
our first
The
priority
first,
needs to
yeah,
be
the
segment
backside,
1.
connecting.
Because, we've ridden our bikes from our side of town all the way back, and it's great all the way through, very safe intersections, and then you come up to our property and you come to a screeching halt, and then, so it would be nice just to continue down, and especially if we're going to be, with the new pavilion and things, I would imagine people taking their bikes down there, and if we have an event down there, they can come, we can come with your bikes, and it would be a safe way to come down. So I think that our priority should be segment 1. It's going to be expensive, and I know we have some money in the Land Conservancy Fund, but my goal is not to deplete that. We need to maintain that for future maintenance and things on this. So, we can continue to look for grants and other funding opportunities.
Are we going to talk, so we had the kayak rentals and stuff, are we going to talk more about that later, about getting other things in there and
Yeah.
generating money?
Yeah, excellent. Yeah. Yes.
Before
Anybody
we
else?
move on to that, any other comments about the?
Is there any
Preference?
plans, what about like on Carrie Algonquin, the bike path ends right there at the Fox Trail South entrance? Has there been ever any discussion about continuing that on where it would go down I'm drawing a blank on what the name of that road is.
To Clausen.
Lawson. That's what I know all the time. Yeah, where you could go into Rotary Park that way.
Yeah.
I'm assuming none of that's Cary though, right?
Yeah, so that is part of our long-range plan.
No, go ahead.
In coordination with some of the different studies that we've been working on. Brian and his team recently completed the Algonquin-Cary sub-area plan. The title might not be right, but it does include a review of the transportation aspects, including bike ped. So I know McHenry County as well has, because they have jurisdiction of Cary Algonquin Road, have looked at that long-term path extension. And then we made that comment as well with the McHenry County Connection, the countywide regional plan. So the Clausen Road and the extension of Cary Algonquin Road path is in that master plan as well.
Well, in earlier discussions that we've had with because obviously that's a county road, the terrain there, it will be very difficult. I mean, if you can see what the drop, I mean, it's dangerous. It's downright dangerous, and you got those ripples that you have to drive through, and then there's that steep fall. So these are opportunities that we can continue to look at partnering with the county on.
In strategic planning, keeping these things in master plans and including them in master plans does help us make them more attractive and score better in our competitive grant processes.
So here we've put this as a future unfunded project, but part of this here on the slide is a potential vendor space. It would act as a garage to store a UTV. The UTV would be used for trail maintenance and police patrol, but then the garage itself could be used for if we did have the kayak rental, for example, wanting to store the boats there and rent out of that garage. So that's a project we have here. The garage itself would be $50,000, and the UTV would be $20,000.
Did the vendor give feedback, the kayak rentals? How did that go?
For the first year, I think they were happy with it. They did approach us to renew for another year. I think if it's going to be a long-term, program with them, we could expand on what exactly that means. That first agreement was just allowing them to use the property.
What are your thoughts on this?
Well, everything's wonderful. It's a matter of, show me the money. I mean, there's not a
What do you think
question.
this is beneficial to, I know the chief, we've talked about this, it's an effort to continue with our policing, safe travels, and they need a vehicle like this too, and then we need a place to keep it. So,
So what are they doing? What are we doing right now if something happens? What type of vehicle are we using to get in there? I'm just kind of curious.
Our squad cars.
Okay.
And we've already hit one gate.
Okay.
So it would be a useful, number one, it's difficult because you have to go one way, you can't back up. Once you're
You're going
you start
around.
down, yeah, when you're going around, number one. But number two, the other part of this is that I think it'd be more useful even with special events and things like that out there. Plus, there are other trails that we might have to get back to as well.
and remember, with the big investment of the pavilion, there's gonna be a lot more people there, a lot more traffic down there, and a lot more opportunities for, the hoodlums to come out and cause some issues.
Well, I think if our police department needs something like this in order to do their job properly, then to me, we should be looking at this as an immediate type of thing to get done. We have this property. This is one of the things you need when you have a property like this. So this isn't just a want, this is a need.
Has any other vendors reached out inquiring about doing anything at this property, or no?
Not to my knowledge, that they've not approached me, but this is something that we could, if you lease this space on weekends or whatever for various groups or whatever types of opportunities that people would have, there's lease opportunities for this.
Well, and I was gonna ask that, so when the pavilion's there, let's say somebody wants to rent the pavilion for a party, so they'd be able to have some of that space, either put some of their stuff in there, or if they wanted to use the space for, like, let's say it's a wedding event, could they get a, liquor license, special use for just the day and use the space? I think there's opportunity there.
There's opportunity there. We have to create the opportunity and the demand. We have to say, if we have these things here, then we can actively promote things that would generate a little bit of income to offset the cost to bring it back.
And a note of planning for the board as well, that the two items that you're seeing listed, the two vehicles, current demand time is 18 to 24 months, so even if you gave them $20,000 right now, you're waiting a year and a half for a vehicle.
Interesting.
Well, I'd say we better giddy up on that then.
Are we charging for pavilion rental? I forgot.
We will be.
We will be.
For events, yeah.
There'll be a reservation system set up online for it, I take it? Okay.
I just think that this goes hand in hand with once that pavilion's completed, we have to have something else. So it has to go in conjunction with it.
I like the pavilion, that, I don't know if this is just an example of it, but just so that I would prefer to not have windows in it where anybody could see inside what's in there or not in there. Like what's being stored in there.
Okay. All right, so it sounds like there is consensus that there's a need. We'll just have to figure out the, balance the cost.
Yes.
All right.
See how it all shakes out, Eric.
Well, that's what the next slide is about. So you can see we had only proposed capital improvements that first year, and part of that is because any improvements at Rotary Park are funded through the Land Conservancy Fund. It does not have a revenue source, like we just talked about. So we've proposed completing the pavilion and the trail design, and then you can see the out years would be that operations and maintenance costs. That includes mowing, fish stocking, park equipment replacements, as well as controlled burns when necessary. So total 5-year cost here is $845,000.
So, okay, I do recall one of my questions now. So the Rotary Park Shelter was, some of it was a donation from the Glenicki. I don't know.
Glenicki's.
Yeah.
Glenicki family. Okay, we just want to make sure I pronounce their name correctly. And then from the Rotary Club. So what portion is the village covering then?
So the
'Cause it
Glenicki
says
family,
489.
yeah, that's total cost.
Okay,
So the Glenicki family wanted $100,000 from their donation to go to this. The Rotary is still discussing with us their final donation amount, and then we'll just cover the rest. So it could be between, we'll just say $200,000 to $300,000 coming from the village.
okay. And then that'll be changed in the spreadsheet.
So we will budget for the entire amount, and then it'll just act as a revenue, so a reimbursement to us.
Okay, thank you.
One thing to remember too is that at the Glenicki, oh my gosh, I can't talk. The Glenicki family requested that we use that $100,000 and try to spur up some additional donations. And we'll continue to work with the Rotary to try to promote that, to get like a matching where we can, once people start seeing this going up, there'll be much more, it's more visual, there'll be a little bit more value to really try to entice people to make donations to this. Their goal was to help get other people who are able to make a contribution to step up. And I think that we do have, through the Community Foundation, I think that we have gotten several more, maybe a couple $1,000s more, that where people were making donations. So
Yes, through the Community Foundation,
Yes.
we've had some small donations
yes,
come in.
but
yeah.
those small donations add up to larger donations, and that's our
Or
goal.
Did we talk about, like, even in the past, like having like bricks that people could buy, or like putting stamped concrete, and then they could purchase like their name or in memory of, with a walkway up to the pavilion?
We did talk about that. I was actually going to just mention that again. I think that's still a really good idea. Especially, I've seen now, even on the trails, people have that on the benches now.
Exactly,
They put some
benches.
benches,
Right.
I'm guessing the Park District, they put that on there. It's nice.
We do the memorial benches at Rotary Park as well.
Okay.
And actually, I think even just last year, I had 3 or 4 purchased. So that is becoming a more popular program.
Right. And that's where our Memorial Tree program is now, so instead of other around town that we're directing everybody to, because we need to forest
Tree it
that
up,
area.
tree
We
it up.
tree it up, yeah.
One
But
of
that's
the,
something that we could look at, maybe having a section that with bricks are laid, kind of a thing, that's.
I think we could also do it in conjunction with promoting it. I mean, not just on our Facebook page and on our Cary Week, News Weekly, maybe getting the paper involved when it starts, to all of a sudden do like a big, hey, it's a groundbreaking for this project. And that, to me, would gin up some interest in other people in saying, hey, we're looking for donations. You can do, whether it's bricks, whether it's stamping, whatever it happens to be. I just think some of it self-promotion would be a great idea to do in conjunction with this.
We'd have to jump on that pretty quick.
Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna actually switch it over to Tim now, and he's gonna talk water and sanitation.
Thanks, Courtney. Yeah, I'll now get into a little bit about our CIP projects as they pertain to our water and sanitation funds. Just an FYI, most all of these projects here under water and sanitation will be factored into our water and sewer rate study that's ongoing and which will be presented to the committee of the whole on March 7th.
I'm just looking at your flyer for like what you can't flush, and I'm just like amazed that you guys are finding some of these things, that people are actually flushing these things.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't even think of ever flushing majority of these things.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's why we bought that screener thing, whatever.
Like
it's
how?
called. Yeah.
Yeah, so to start off here, our first and most financially substantial project in this category is the conceptual construction of a new well near the Rotary Park. This well would be a key component for improving the resiliency of our water supply system here in the village. In anticipation of the EPA creating regulations and creating strict regulations on a compound called PFAS, which are perfluoroalkyl substances, we've taken our wells 8 and 9 offline. So drilling this new deep well would establish a way to remediate and replace that water capacity that was supplied by wells 8 and 9. And it is our hope that we would receive an advanced McHenry County grant for this project. We have applied for $1.12 million in reimbursement for the well from that grant. And if approved, we could see a 3 fiscal year planning and design construction process as shown here. There's several other benefits that are associated with the project outside of improving the resiliency of outputting water to our village residents. One of those Courtney mentioned earlier is the opportunity to fund paving a portion of the trails in Rotary Park with this project. The paving of the trails, or at least the segment shown here, would be necessary if a well is to be constructed here in order to give our crews ease of access to the well for maintenance, general work out there, in addition to giving the police department easier access to the area for patrolling and responding to anything they would need to. Additionally, this project would see some water main extensions that if there's ever any property sale or desire for development along Route 31, there would be water main access at that location. It would also give the Fox Trail subdivision another route of connection to water main. Currently, they are isolated to only receiving water from Cary Algonquin Road. Finally, this would also provide the opportunity for an emergency water main connection to the city of Crystal Lake if there's ever an emergency need for a water connection. Up next, we have some of our water tower projects. As was recently awarded, we have the painting of water tower number 4 just outside the building here. We are also proposing here this upcoming fiscal year the demolition of the old small block structure that's adjacent to tower number 1 on High Road. That structure is old and run down and it is in need of demolition and removal from the site. Similarly, towers 2 and 3 are in need of some cleaning and general maintenance, which we have shown here, the fiscal year 23-24 budget, as well as we are looking for feedback from the board if they would desire something like the accent lighting concept shown here on tower number 4 after we do the painting here this fiscal year, providing residents and people from out of town something nice to look at as they drive into town on 3 Oaks Road. Outside of that, fiscal year 25-26, we have another tower painting and rehabilitation budgeted. That's for Tower 1 on High Road.
So perhaps we can pause here just to, again, get feedback on this concept for accent lighting. It's just, again, another idea to highlight Cary. I just wanted to see if there was any interest in that, or if it's too much, then obviously we can just move forward with the status quo.
And to note, the accent lighting would be about 30,000 of the 80,000 that's shown here. The other 50 is for replacing that fence, which we would move forward with doing that either way.
Right, the fence has to be replaced.
You're talking about a 30,000 expenditure. really,
An
we're looking
additional
at.
$30,000. You remember, this comes from our water and sand fund, not the general fund.
Can I just ask a question about the Tower 1 demolition? Does that need to be replaced, that tower then, or is that just not even needed?
So it's not the actual tower itself. There's a structure next to the tower.
Okay.
I apologize, the table is a little deceiving there, right?
Okay, okay, thank you.
Well, I'm just going to say that I can't begin to say how excited I am that we're finally going to get this water tower painted. It's very, very, very exciting,
Was
a
not our
long-term
fault,
in
yeah.
the coming. You know, as much as, and I'm not trying to be, as much as it's lovely to have lighting, uplighting on something like that, I'm just not, I guess I'd want to know where our this water and sewer fund stands, whether or not that's an expense that is not going to create an issue. Because it's not coming from the general fund. So I'd want to look at that, analyze that first before I'd say, is that the right way to spend an additional 30,000? Or I just think getting it painted, and this people are going to be like ecstatic about. I know I am going to be, but I would think most people will be.
Yeah, you'll see in our rate study presentation next week that, or on March 7th, that the water fund we are looking at, we're very excited about some very good news on the rate study results. So yeah, we will be well funded, and we will be positioned to have a very thoughtful and conservative rate increase proposed.
Okay.
And the accent lighting was included when they put those rates together, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
I'm good with not doing the accent lighting personally. The other thing I wanted to ask, again, it might be the picture, but the blue that's associated with the Cary, is that like a darker blue? The reason why I'm asking is because I just want consistency with some of the coloring, I guess. Like even, you mentioned the Cary sign downtown. I know somebody made the suggestion of making it like the same color blue as like the Trojan blue. So it like fits in with the town, so it's just like a darker blue. So I'm just curious what this blue is on the tower.
it was spec to match the logo, since the logo was also on the tower. So it's
Kind of this
cadet blue
So
up
it's
there.
a darker blue.
It's a darker blue.
Okay.
We'd attempted to match that with our Cary art sign, but the custom paint costs made it more economical to make that a standard
And
color.
I like the sign downtown, just for the record. I just know somebody suggested that to tie that in with like, the Trojans, which is Cary, and I thought that was a great idea.
In general terms, I'm not in favor of the uplighting. Yes, it's a minimal cost, yes, it could be baked in, but I think there'd be better use of that. And then I see those kinds of things always as LEDs do last a long time, but when you do have to come to replace them, especially large output, outdoor ones, there is an expense that goes with that. And I could foresee some good things happening, but I just don't think it's an expense that I'm in favor of.
Agreed.
I agree as well.
All right, thank you. We will just move forward on the fence.
Yep.
All right, next here, we have our lead service line replacement program. As part of the Lead Service Line Replacement Act, municipalities are now being required to begin the process of replacing lead service lines throughout their communities. Beginning this year, the replacement of all partial lead service lines has been banned. That is, if a contractor or a village or someone else sees that a property has a portion of a lead service line, that must be replaced upon inspection. By this May, the village is required to submit an inventory of all the lead service lines that we are aware of in town. Our staff has already began the process of locating all those lines, knocking on doors, getting a good count of that, and it will be completed well before that date. We are on track for that. Following that, by April of 2027, the village must begin replacing all our lead service lines at a rate of at least 7% annually. And by 2042, so pretty far out, all of those will need to be replaced. That is a part of the Lead Service Line Act, not just unique to us here in Cary. It's believed that most of the lead service lines we have here in the village follow scenario number 2 that you'll see here. That is a non-lead service line going from the main to the B box, and then a lead service line from the B box into the resident's home. Outlined here, we have a proposed financial commitment to replace these lead service lines for the upcoming years.
Can I just jump in here? Through Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus and McCog, we are working with our state legislature, since this is yet another unfunded mandate. We're working on our legislators to help provide us funding to offset the cost of these things. So there is opportunity out there.
And this is, like Tim had mentioned earlier, that initial lead service line program, these are included in our rate study. So we are factoring at least the first 5-year costs in this current rate period.
Yeah, so those are included in the rate study, and those lead service lines are also included in this total you see here on this slide, which is our total 5-year investment proposed for ongoing capital programs. Outside those lead service lines, this includes our residential water meter replacement program, which has been ongoing for a little while now. That includes updating all of our residents' water meters to remote reading software and capabilities. Outside of that, we have our water main replacement program, which is on an as-needed basis for spot repairs. That will go well with a leak detection study we are hoping to get going here pretty soon, which is what it sounds like, having a contractor or consultant come out here and study all our water mains, look for potential leak spots or weak spots. So based on what is found with that, that will go well with our water main replacement program. Similarly, on a spot repair basis, as needed, we have our sanitary sewer main replacement program. We already know of a couple places in town that we'd like to get accomplished with this program, but again, that is on an as-needed basis. And then, like I mentioned, the lead service line replacement program is a part of this total here. Next for discussion here, we have the idea of a electric vehicle pilot program in our utilities division. As shown here, we would have an electric van with a cab chassis that could be used for our staff that does well and lift station runs for general maintenance, keeping track of those infrastructure items here in the village. The vehicle shown here has a range of about 126 miles on an electric charge, which is well above the daily driving range of our staff that runs those well and lift station routes. This would save on fuel costs, which the staff would alternatively drive a 3/4 ton gasoline truck, which the EPA estimates gets about 11 miles per gallon. Based on the use of a utility worker, it would most likely get less than that from stopping, starting, engine hours, etc. At the right here, you can see that that vehicle costs about $82,000 with the configuration shown here. For reference, a gasoline truck, 3/4 ton truck with this configuration would cost about $72,000 conversely. We also have shown here the concept of a plug-in hybrid vehicle, a smaller vehicle that could be used by admin staff, Public Works Division, whoever needs to use that for general driving needs, and a Class 2 charging station that would be used to charge that vehicle. Next here, we have the replacement of the gravity filter vessel at our well number 4. This filter is used to remove anything from barium to general softening needs of water at this location. It is a larger expense because you can see here that the roof of the well house does actually need to be removed in order to replace the filter. So we need to take off the roof, remove the old filter, put a new one in, and replace the roof. That is why this infrastructure improvement would be estimated to cost about $1.8 million in fiscal year '28.
How long are the filters good for, just out of curiosity? A rough idea, any idea? Oh, sorry.
This unit has been in place, it was installed new in 1994, about 25 years depending.
And the estimated portion of that cost for the roof?
Of the 1.8?
In the factored into that, what they.
Yeah.
Correct.
Roughly, what is it?
And I bring this up for a very specific reason, having dealt with well pumps. we've gotten in the practice in my business of creating, for lack of a better term, a semi-permanent door on the roof. If your pump is small enough, you can get away with a large skylight just for this purpose. So yes, it's only once every 15 or 20 years, but there's no reason to completely rebuild a roof if you can plan in advance and use a small bit of engineering to make the removal and/or repair of that item a little more accessible.
Yeah. We don't have the exact proportion of it, but actually most of the cost is the unit itself and then the actual physical act of getting it there. Because you can see from the size, it's not something that's brought in by a small piece of equipment either. And it's hard to also see the scale. If you were to stand near this vessel, it is substantial.
If I may, the picture doesn't show it, but this is on the dead end of Ann Street, just, whatever, off of Eldon. That's it's a deep well, water softening is what's going on there, but also, once that, the picture doesn't do it, but there's like a doghouse, there's a structure that's on the roof that's above, that's where the aeration tower, the water goes through that. So it is designed currently that this doghouse looking comes off, is, if, for this purpose. It was built that way back in '94 when they updated the facility.
Excellent.
But it still has, and that 1.8 is, I believe, is not only the new water softening filter you're seeing their vessel, but the aeration tower on top, and then that also, I believe the controls, electrical controls, it would all be new, and the booster pumps inside the building are all, it'd be a total rebuild of that building.
Thank you.
Internally.
Makes sense.
Up next, we have another similar larger replacement need. That is the digester boiler and the controller equipment at our wastewater treatment plant. This is a crucial piece of infrastructure. It keeps our wastewater treatment process at appropriate temperature for chemical reactions and other processes to function properly. This piece of equipment is rather outdated. It was installed between 1992 and 1993, and since that, the internal portion of the boiler has not been rehabilitated or replaced since then. With the age of this equipment, it's becoming increasingly difficult to impossible to find replacement parts or technicians that are experienced with the equipment. So we are recommending the replacement of this unit. Here are some other CIP highlights from our water and sanitation fund. In the upcoming years, we have a few pumps and motors that will be due for replacement throughout our system. Similar to that outdated boiler we just took a look at, well number 6 has some very old electrical equipment. We're finding that a lot of it just doesn't exist anymore for replacement parts. So it either needs to be manufactured, fabricated, or replace the equipment. So that's what we're proposing here. We also have a couple fleet vehicles that will be due for replacement in both the water fund and the sanitation funds. Finally, we have a couple replacements that will be needed to our wastewater treatment plant itself. Those include some blowers and the oxidation ditch gate. Here I have a summary of some CIP items for our water and sanitation funds. Again, this includes everything from our fleet vehicles to infrastructure improvements and facility improvements, technological services such as GIS that we use to keep track of all our infrastructure and the quality repairs needed of it throughout town. Again, all of this is being factored into the water and sewer rate and fee study, which will be presented to the committee of the whole on March 7th.
Any questions related to the water and sanitation fund before we move on?
So this is all funded at this time, like on this sheet, or it's not funded?
Yeah, it's all included in the proposed rate study. So if the board moved forward with those rates, then yes, this would all be funded.
Like a rate increase for water? and sewer? Okay,
It's tracking very minimal right now.
okay.
Well, we'll see that in March, right?
Yeah, a
Yeah,
bigger
something-
presentation will be
Yeah.
all about that.
Well, I mean, you have to look at the amount of investment we have to make to provide the water. And, these are things that, again, we all agreed that the $30,000 would be nice to spend on uplights, but we have substantial infrastructure improvements that we have to make, so.
No, I just recall like a couple years ago, we did increase the water rate, I think over the course of 5
Right.
years to pay for probably the whole stuff that was being flushed down the toilets improperly. Is that what that was? Like that?
It was just, we do this it's like they're
Every 5 years.
Every 5 years, so we have to do a rate study, so there has to, and just, I'm gonna throw this out there too. The Village of Cary provides top-notch water at the lowest cost in our region. We do not, all the other municipalities, their water costs, correct me if I'm wrong, gentlemen,
We're competitive.
we're very competitive, so.
And I'll be interested to see that rate study, looking at 25, 26, and $9 million in projects that, I'll be anxious to see how that's gonna happen.
Yeah, so that's precisely a good part of why we do the CIP process. We want you to see the total needs that we have here, and then that you have that context, so that when you see the numbers and the rates on the 7th, you'll see why. But as I mentioned, we won't go into great details till the rate study presentation, but I know these numbers are large, but they're important. But the resulting rates are tracking very, very well so far.
Well, and it's important, it's not this is a necessity. We have to have the proper things for our water and sanitation. You can't let go to the wayside. That's why the other expenditures, if we don't need them, and it might seem minimal, you see 30,000 in a budget of this large, but it's making the right decision with being very financially responsible.
And John and his team have done a great job of looking at what the utility needs, which is what we always do here at the Village of Cary. We're very, very conservative and measured in what we put forward in our expenditures, and this is a very measured and controlled 5-year CIP on the water and sand. But the age of our system obviously necessitates a lot of different things. Just by virtue of the fact that a lot of our infrastructure was built in a high growth period, so it is all reaching kind of a end of life point in a similar time frame. But we're able to spread it out in these 5-year increments through these rate studies, and what you see here, I think, is a great job of the team getting out what we need, and we'll again show you those results on the 7th.
Great.
I think that's a good thing to note is that John's team has also extended the life of a lot of this equipment even beyond what would normally be its end of life. It's hurting my feelings that you keep saying 1994 is old, but it's fine.
Two things. So I really like in the presentation where you put the pictures next to the description. I'm a visual learner, so that was nice for me to see. And then just backing up to talking about the vehicles. I'm just looking on here, the electric, versus the gas vehicles. Was that in the spreadsheet that was planned, or is this something like just up for discussion?
This can be up for discussion, but the replacement of these vehicles is included in the rate study. So
Okay.
which vehicle we go with.
I understand, thank you.
And we're considering it, like we mentioned, as a pilot. So we're not looking to replace our entire fleet this manner. We've identified that we'll call it the service vehicles that do the rounds, because we visit our lift stations and wells daily, the vehicles used for that particular operation are very well suited to the EV opportunity. Some of the other aspects of what we do with the trucks that have the heavy cranes to lift pumps and things out of lift stations obviously aren't necessarily ideal for that application. But it's just an opportunity for us to try it out and dip our toes in the water, and also looking at the comparisons with the two vehicles. There is a bit of a premium on this version versus the standard vehicle we would normally purchase for that application, but it's not as great of a difference as we would have expected.
Also, just to note, there are grant opportunities available for the charging station.
And with regard to the charging station, how long would it take to fully charge the vehicle up to 126 miles again?
With the Class 2 charging station, and those aren't the super high speed, so that's why they're actually measurably relatively cost affordable. That can be done overnight.
Okay, I was just curious because, like, I know sometimes when it's really cold, the battery won't last as long. It'll drain a lot faster. So that's why I was just curious how long it would take to charge it up again.
And that's why we did measure or take that into consideration. We see this particular, and obviously manufacturers, each of them does vary, but on the conservative side, this particular one we benchmarked has the lowest range of the options out there, and it's about 3 times the miles that we would accomplish daily. And that also includes a lift gate on the back in order to lift the chlorine cylinders that we transport occasionally. The data we found, the lift gate, we thought would have impacted the range considerably, but it in fact doesn't, just the way that these batteries and the efficiency of those motors work.
Thank you.
So we'll switch over to road infrastructure and capital maintenance. So you'll see for next year, we're proposing $200,000 for our road maintenance programs. That includes asphalt patching, sidewalk cutting, pavement marking, as well as bike path repair. We have removed our sidewalk replacement program from this budget. What we're proposing is to include it in our future road programs, beginning with next year's program. You can see here, this is just one example with this chart that, maintenance costs do just continue to rise. So next year for pavement markings, for example, we are proposing to budget $70,000. We will continue to include a parkway tree replacement program, an annual program, and then we've also proposed 1 year of contracted tree trimming services of $15,000.
And then, do you guys still have a backlog of people that are requesting to have their sidewalk shaved or anything like that, or is that consistent, how it always is with the requests being backlogged?
Yeah, I have a slide on. You'll see
Okay.
that
Oh,
map
I'll wait.
again.
All right, thanks.
So here's just the map for the asphalt patching program that's proposed for next year. So you'll see Nighthawk Way, Nighthawk, Pin Oak, Foxford Drive is in there as well. And then we'll note the costs do continue to rise even between fiscal year 2022 to 2023. We saw a 5% increase in unit costs. And here's that map. It's my favorite and also least favorite map that we have at the village. It does highlight those locations that either staff or residents have reported, and that can be whether it's a large tripping hazard or even just a small crack. We look at it all. There are over 3,000 locations, but a large majority of those are those low or watch category, and that's where, yes, we could address it by the sidewalk grinding, which we do in-house, or the sidewalk cutting. You can see replacement costs do continue to rise with a 7% increase here. And again, that's part of the reason we're looking to put the sidewalk replacement program in with the annual road program. Any questions about?
Very impressive.
I think that's smart to put it in with that, because it's gonna be an ongoing cost. To have it separate is just, it could get left to the wayside. We're gonna have to continually budget for that.
And scales of economy are a big factor in why we are choosing this approach.
Perfect.
Throw it back to Tim.
And also, there's the municipal partnering and shared services that we go after as well to drive down the cost.
Okay, so this slide here represents our pavement condition index, or our PCI, for all our roads. We're currently budgeting every 2 or 3 years to have a consultant drive all the roads and assess them visually in this manner. This is budgeted for one of the upcoming years. So what we have here was done with a modeling software called Paver that we use to get an idea of the PCI of all our roads here currently. In the past, we have always maintained a PCI of satisfactory, which is above a rating of 70.1. Unfortunately, this year, our models showed that we did fall below that rating to a rating of fair, which is a 68.74 for our average rating of roads here in the village currently. It is our goal, and we would like to see that rating consistently be at least satisfactory, at least a 70.1 or higher. This drop is due to the fact that we're estimating with our model that about 27% of the roads are in poor or worse condition. Going off that previous slide, here is a graphical look at how some different budgeting strategies would impact the conditions of our roads. Currently, the only source of funding for resurfacing projects is through the motor fuel tax revenue. These motor fuel tax dollars come out to about $730,000 annually right now. And with the analysis and the modeling software we use this year, we are looking at about $1.6 million annual investment in order to keep our roads at least a satisfactory rating, at least a PCI of 70.1 or higher. That is up from last year's estimate, which estimated it would take about a $1.16 million annual investment to keep our roads at a 70.1 or higher. And that's due to a large increase in unit costs and construction costs for road projects. And again, this is due to the fact that 26.6 or about 27% of our roads are in poor and worse conditions currently. And in order to maintain this rating of 70.1 or higher, or a satisfactory condition of our roads, we would need to find another revenue source other than MFT dollars. Here we have a look at our 5-year road program. The pattern here is adjusted year to year. It's not necessarily set in stone, as roads do not deteriorate linearly, but you can see that the areas highlighted do correspond to some of the lower rated roads from that PCI model that we just showed. This year's road program has already been awarded, and work will begin soon, weather permitting. Here we have a look at our proposed improvements to the First Street corridor. This is with an STP grant, or a Surface Transportation Grant, that was awarded for 2025 construction. The local share of this project would be about 20%. The other 80% would be from that STP grant, and the construction of this project would go from Route 14 to Three Oaks Road. Up next, we have the implementation of some illuminated street signage on Route 14. There are currently engineering plans prepared for this project, so it is shovel-ready. It is ready to go with some minor updates. These signs would be similar and matching to what we have proposed for our downtown streetscape currently. So what will be put into place this year, those street signs downtown will be locally owned. So these would match those nicely. Cary blue background and the Village of Cary logo on the sign. Here we have for consideration and discussion the idea of sidewalks to be installed in the Hilltop subdivision. If sidewalks are to be opted for by the village board, that would be considered with our upcoming road design process. The 5-year road program slide, you saw that some resurfacing work will be occurring in the Hilltop subdivision proposed for this year. But if sidewalks are to be elected for, that would be in fiscal year 2024. Here's another look at sidewalks in the Hilltop subdivision. This is on Hill Street. Again, this is just a conceptual look for discussion purposes at what sidewalks here might look like if they're implemented. They would need to meet IDOT standards, and here's a look at some carriage walks with a 7-foot width.
So this will have a separate discussion, obviously, moving forward per our previous committee conversations we had on that. But we just wanted to make sure the board was still comfortable with us, at least at this point in the CIP, accounting for the consideration of it and the continued discussion on it with our road program design for next fiscal year.
Here we have a summary of our MFT funds. Included in these categories are our annual road program, design and construction of future projects, traffic signal modernization at the intersection of Georgetown Drive and Three Oaks Road. Key takeaway here is that in order for our road program to get our PCI back up to 70, maintain that level here going forward in future fiscal years, we will need a larger investment outside of motor fuel tax dollars alone. Here we have the Rawson Bridge Bikeway proposed project, which we applied for an ITEP grant last fall. This project would go from Three Oaks to Roberts Road and would be in partnership with Algonquin Township, Nunda Township, and the Village of Port Barrington. We're excited for this project, waiting to see whether or not we will be awarded the grant, which would again cost 80% of construction costs. Local shares would be divided by stretches of the route that are within each partner's limits, and this project would include both on-street and off-street bike paths throughout the stretch.
And the costs that are listed in this chart are before we would receive the reimbursement.
So this is the total cost.
Yes.
Got it.
Here we have a look at some future unfunded flood mitigation projects. These projects are also shovel-ready. These top three shown here have engineering plans prepared for them. Those would be flood mitigation on Park Avenue, storm sewer construction in Veterans Park, and storm sewer construction at North School Street and Krenz Avenue. Outside of these projects, based on a 2017 flood mitigation study that was done throughout the village, so this is in 2017 dollars, there is potentially another $9.6 million in other future unfunded flood mitigation project needs throughout the village. Route 14 at Three Oaks Road intersection improvements is another future unfunded project. This would be a potential partnership with IDOT, and we would hope it would relieve some vehicle capacity, some queuing, and other traffic issues at the intersection, as well as promote a greater deal of safety at the intersection. We would be looking to seek federal assistance for this project, as it has an estimated conceptual cost of about $5 million. And it would also provide a great improvement to the Three Oaks corridor with the city of Crystal Lake down at 31 and the new hospital being constructed at that intersection. Another future unfunded project we have here, and a candidate for a potential ITEP grant, is the extension of existing sidewalk on Industrial Drive and the extension of the existing trail along Cary Algonquin Road. This project has been identified by CMAP as a priority area for improvements and potential projects, and this would go from West Main Street to Industrial Drive with the trail, and then obviously the Industrial Drive sidewalks. It would have a conceptual cost of about $640,000. Next, here we have our last future unfunded project, which is McHenry County Conservation District's Felpro Park entrances. There are two potential access points here for constructing an entrance, both on the western and the eastern side of the park. You can see the eastern access would feature a stretch that goes along Crystal Lake Road, and that would have a conceptual cost of about $60,000. An alternate for access would be a western access point, which would feature new path construction as well as a street crossing, and that would have a conceptual cost of about $85,000.
Okay, now we're gonna jump over into our commuter parking fund improvements. This first slide you'll see here is our parking fund revenue from year to year. Revenue remains flat as anticipated. We're seeing a slight increase in our daily parkers, but a slight decrease in our commuter permit parkers. I think it's, everyone's still trying to find the new normal after the pandemic. We hope to see these numbers increase in the, future fiscal years, but we don't really anticipate it ever bouncing back to those pre-pandemic levels that we see on this chart. Just with, advances in technology, there's just more remote and work from home opportunities that have happened. This next slide here is the current structure of the commuter parking lots. Just based on the prior slides, the revenues being significantly less than our pre-pandemic numbers. Just there's some potential for future discussion items on maybe restructuring some of these potential fee increases, changing our permit structure from quarterly to monthly, potentially even, getting rid of the permit-only parking lot as those spots are underutilized since the pandemic.
So here we just have what our 5-year proposed cost would be. For next year, we're proposing landscaping around our new station, as well as installing that diversion fencing that we talked about last year over at the South Commuter Lot. That is to just push commuters who are crossing down to that West Main intersection rather than crossing right at the tracks. It's a safety issue, really. We also have a camera replacement in FY25 for the station. And then, like Kelly was talking about, if we were to get rid of permit only in that lot number 2, So if we were to allow daily fears to park here, we would just need to renumber that lot. So that 15,000 is a placeholder. It's just part of the overall discussion that we'll have in the future. And then you can see our operating expenses. We've kept them pretty flat at about 37.5 every year. And if revenues were to remain as they are now, we can sustain those expenses, those operating expenses, without having to have a transfer from the general fund, which we've done, I believe, the past 2 years.
Yeah, it's thankful that we've done all the parking lot work.
Do we
are-
own this property, or does Metro own it and then we maintain it?
There's a mixture. We own some property, the Union Pacific owns some, and Metro owns some.
What about lot number 7? Do you know who?
That one, I believe, is Union Pacific property.
Okay.
They've wanted us to buy that for years.
I was just wondering if it's not really utilized, could we do something with it? But maybe not if they own it.
Yeah.
And they wanted us to purchase it for
Well,
like.
I mean, several years ago, they approached us wanting us to expand that parking lot. Because that, we were full for many, many years, and we were looking for other opportunities to extend the parking. But as you see, what concerns me is the numbers are slowly but surely coming up, but I like the idea of refiguring lot number 2, because we don't have the permit parking anymore. I mean, if you look at that one last slide, how many permits we actually issue, I mean, you can't even see the line. So if we were to reconfigure that, and that might alleviate some of the future discussion with the downtown parking people want to talk about, and how we can reconfigure some of these areas that we maintain. But I think that, I think the Union Pacific would like us to buy it all. You know, they've said, well, am I right? They just want to, they want to offload all that stuff, but we're not in the position. Back in the day when our parking fund was, really churning away, that would be something that I think that the boards would have considered, but I don't see that ever happening anytime soon.
So are you looking at talking about at a future COW meeting, speaking about the permit only lot 2?
I think it's something that we really need to consider. We've got to be, we've got to be able to pivot on these things. And, when we drive through the parking lot during our inspections, and it's amazing that the number of people they have to park so far away, and you have all of these parking slots that no one is parking in anymore. It just makes sense just to
Yeah,
be
I
a little
agree.
bit more commuter friendly, and, we don't need as many permit. And then as things change, we could adapt.
We can pivot again.
Yeah.
And yes, to your point, we do plan on having a discussion at the committee level this calendar year to kind of set the direction of where we want to go. We just wanted to introduce the framework for it, especially given it ties very well to our capital plan. And as Courtney mentioned and Kelly mentioned, even with these lower revenues, we're handling our operations. But obviously, and the mayor mentioned, we were fortunate that we were able to address our immediate capital needs. But moving forward, our revenues aren't going to support the next round of capital needs. We're fresh on our commuter lot paving, but the clock now starts and resets. There will be some paving needs down the road that we will have to be able to plan for and adjust for.
So, we currently use Enterprise for our fleet leasing program. Most of the vehicles that we lease are the police interceptors and light-duty vehicles that PW admin, PD admin as well, and then just regular admin are utilizing right now. So for next year, we're proposing one new interceptor to be leased, as well as one Durango. Once those are leased, all police vehicles will have been leased at that point. In the out years, you can see we have a few more light-duty trucks that we're proposing to be leased. I believe these are PW admin vehicles as well as some community development vehicles. So those costs are there. They're a little high. I mean, the total 5-year cost is over $2 million. But keep in mind, part of the reason that we went with Enterprise is because once our lease ends, they sell those vehicles and we get a portion of those costs back. On the lower chart here, you'll see we are proposing purchasing 2 plow trucks. Each plow truck is about $300,000. For now, what we've done is we've put in just total purchase cost, but staff is looking into, could we finance these trucks ourselves? So they wouldn't be a part of the enterprise lease program, but we would finance them just to help with our cash flow. And then here's just an equipment summary. So we're proposing to purchase a building sweeper next year, as well as update our spreader controls for the plows. We would purchase replacement panels for both the loader and our bucket truck. And then the $100,000 is to update the radio equipment that activates our warning sirens. This was a request from CCOM to all CCOM served municipalities. What it does, and the chief can talk about it a little better, but it puts it on the STARCOM platform, right?
That's correct. So right now, how we activate our weather sirens is through a tone that is transmitted on a VHF frequency. It's the Public Works frequency. And but Harvard has had some issues with people being able to set them off outside of the municipality. If you're relatively you have some knowledge in regards to how to do it, you could do it without having, because it's not a very secure system currently. And we have to rely on the transmitter at CCOM to set these off. So we would be a suggestion, or we would like to have them all on the STARCOM system, which is much more secure. And it would also automate the process where if there's a warning and they set these warnings in polygons, if the polygon includes that area that the siren's in, it would set those sirens off based on the level of warning automatically, thereby, reducing the need for an operator to have to do it manually.
And then the out-year costs are replacing our chipper, and then eventually replacing the loader that we're going to do the replacement panels for next year. And then we'll switch on over to facility maintenance. Tim?
Yeah, so I'll talk briefly here about a little bit of our facility maintenance and improvement plans for the upcoming years. First here, we have a look at our Public Works facility, break room renovations, as well as our conference room, which were just completed here really recently, and the break room is being finished up here within the upcoming weeks. That was very well-needed improvements. We're really happy to see that. The guys did a great job down there doing that in-house. Similarly, our wastewater treatment plant, office, and locker room is shown here. Those are also in need of some improvement. They're outdated. Want to make it a little more comfortable, better place to work for our employees down there. So you'll see a proposed rendering of what those improvements might look like. So we'd like to do that here in the upcoming year shortly. Here we have a summary of our facility maintenance and improvement plans for the next 5 fiscal years. We have a facility condition assessment in fiscal year 28, putting that out there as this building is rather new. Public Works facility is still in need of some further improvements going forward, such as lighting, flooring, updating our computer server storage area to a more secure, better suited location in that building. This building here, our new municipal center, we are proposing a $20,000 annual allotment for facility maintenance and improvements here. To be prepared for anything that might come up, we need to take care of in order to keep this building looking new and great like it already does currently. Wastewater treatment plant has several improvements to those facilities that are needed. Those are, again, factored into our water and sewer rate study, which is for the committee of the whole on March 7th. So that will be factored into there. Metro Depot, that is funded by the parking fund, and we have a $100,000 placeholder budgeted here for the consolidated police training facility that will be going up near the Public Works property. That is a similar local share to CCOM, how we pay for that, and it's estimated that we'll have substantially less than that as our local share. $100,000 is a placeholder here.
I just have a quick question. I know we've been budgeting for the $100,000 for several years now. What about, there's nothing in there for 24, like for the following years? Is there nothing that we're going to have to contribute to, or is it a cost per employee that uses it?
It's exactly what it is. It's gonna be a proportional cost based on the shooters. This is both the training center, which is our old Village Hall Police Department, and the firearms range. And right now, in fact, I am putting together the budget for the range, and I've been gathering those costs from our finance department. I've been bothering them for the operational costs for the old Village Hall and the police department, and getting new costs for that firearms range, because there's some unknown costs right now based on, maintenance and repair and things of that nature. But it'll be proportional, and it'll be based on the number of shooters.
Okay, thank you.
And the ultimate goal would to have that annual cost be in the general fund. Oh, it's me. Yeah. So here are some highlights, both that are currently ongoing as well as future purchases. So we talked about earlier that we did switch to BSNA for our permitting. We are proposing, and the contract has already been approved for that first payment, to switch our financial software, including utility billing, to BSNA as well. And this is just an opportunity to have all of our village functions operating on the same system, creating that cohesion. The two payments that will remain for BSNA would be in the Water and Sanitation Fund. And then we did begin phase 1 of our GIS implementation, which includes the public maps that we'll put on our website, as well as field applications for our PW employees. So the bottom right is a forestry assessment map, and this would allow employees to track where are trees that need to be trimmed, where are we at with some of the trees that are being removed? Has the tree been removed yet? Has the stump been ground? Do we need to restore just the parkway? And then also tracking where are potential future plantings. So that's just one of the field applications we currently have now. And then future projects here, that biggest number on this chart here is $300,000 for the body-worn cameras. That is an unfunded mandate. We are required to implement body-worn cameras by January 2025. We are proposing to purchase both body-worn cameras and in-car cameras so they can be on the same system. Also, our in-car cameras are currently at the end of their life.
Yeah, we use a Panasonic arbitrator system that is a legacy, and we didn't want to update those before we were going to purchase body-worn cameras, and we would be looking at some type of solution that would integrate both. A single platform, because there's going to be storage issues, redaction issues, things of that nature that we're going to have to incorporate into our operations as well.
And then another highlight here is updating our website. So that would include making it more mobile friendly, updating our content. My big excitement for that is less clicks to get to where you're trying to go on our website. And then we'll continue on phase 2 of our GIS implementation, not only expanding the maps that we have for field employees as well as the public, but also data collection, updating our sanitation structures, getting accurate data about those structures that are out there, and then in the future, doing the same thing for our storm system. This building. And then even some new Cary businesses could go into that video, and Sunburst Bay Aquatic Center as well. And then in the out years, what we've proposed is $100,000. We keep this as a placeholder. It's staff proposing that we should continue to invest into our economic development, but we can talk what are those details each fiscal year, and we can decide that.
Any questions on that?
Nope,
I think it's
very prudent.
vital,
Yep.
vital.
And then related to economic development is the continued preparation for the potential adoption of the TIF district. So we're currently working with Kane McKenna on completing the redevelopment plan and housing impact study. That would just be completed next fiscal year. We're still on track to potentially adopt the TIF district in late summer. Any questions about the TIF? Brian loves the TIF. All right, one more category for you, and that's community image. So another donation-led project will be completed this upcoming fiscal year. That's the installation of the entry signs. We're budgeting $80,000 to complete that project. And then we are also proposing over fiscal year '24 and fiscal year '25 to update the subdivision signs as well as install wayfinding signage. So for the wayfinding signage, we're proposing to install just the signage in the downtown next fiscal year, and then the following fiscal year, we would install the remainder. Here is a map to show you where all those signs are.
I'd like to propose moving up the wayfinding signs, if there's a way to get it sooner than later. Because with the, we deal with the downtown businesses all the time, and they talk about parking issues. And we hired a consultant to evaluate all of our parking several years ago. We don't have parking issues. Our parking issue is telling people where they can park. And the only way that we can really get this done is by maybe start with the downtown, putting the wayfinding signs down there, directing people to where they need to go, especially with the new improvements with the downtown, with the streetscape, the potential use of the next year with the community plaza. This is something I think that the businesses would really appreciate, being a little bit more advanced in our placement with this. So I'd like to consider that, if that's something the board would consider doing as well.
I think that's a wise decision if we're going to do it in conjunction with redoing the downtown. Get some of that done at one full swoop if we're going to be doing it. So I definitely agree with that.
Is it in the budget for it, or is it something where we
These
would?
are all proposed. I mean, these are things that, with what we're doing, then they go back and, Kelly with her magic wand will make sure all this is in there.
So like even possibly not doing the subdivision signs and if we needed to, and then just doing even though they are more expensive, the wayfinding signs, moving those up. and
Yeah,
then-
I would agree with that
I would
assessment. I
too.
think the subdivision signs, it's nice to have. I think we have more pressing issues with directing where people
Correct.
need to go.
I agree with that.
Okay. We would likely, with that approach, we can work the numbers and make schedule adjustments. Just keeping in mind that a lot of those wayfinding signs are going to be along routes that are either McHenry County DOT or Illinois DOT jurisdiction. So the permitting process, especially for the state routes, will probably extend to make those happen a year later anyway. But
So,
we'll
I'd rather start it now
I
and
agree.
get it
If it's
going.
going to
then.
do that and we
Exactly.
wait another year,
Yeah.
then we're waiting 2.5 years. I'd rather get it going, and especially knowing that.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely it's going to take time.
certainly.
Were the signs approved? They are
Yes,
approved? Oh, okay.
they'll be constructed, yeah.
Yes, the entry signs, we anticipate that the fabrication should be wrapping up very shortly. So as soon as the weather breaks, I hope the contractor will be out putting those signs up shortly.
For those subdivision signs, was that 6,000 for one sign,
No, that was for
or all 11?
half the 11
Half.
at a time. We found some more economical quotes recently.
All you, Eric.
All right, next is another program we would like the board's feedback on to consider for including in our CIP. Kind of building off of something that dated back to the Eisenhower administration, they had established what was called a Public Works of Art program that was geared toward getting public art in the variety of federal properties and federal facilities. Kind of blending that into the local level, we see an opportunity to do the same, but on public rights-of-way and infrastructure, whether it's buildings, public or private, with partnerships, public facilities like our Well 13 ground storage tank. There's a big, very large structure over near Deer Path Elementary and the junior high, or even our wastewater treatment plant. There's plenty of opportunities, which I'll show in a second. Benefits of this have very wide-ranging impacts, both economically. Economic development, we stressed earlier, is an important part of our capital program. And these have an opportunity to give more attention to the village, bring visitors to the village, connect our citizens and those who don't know Cary very well to our deep history that we have here, especially establishing that branding and placemaking, building upon that success we had at that Cary sign over in the corner of downtown, giving those selfie moments for maybe not my generation, but others that really want to go out and enjoy the scene and the vibe of our downtown and our entire village. So some examples of the different types of art that could be put publicly throughout the village. Murals are obviously some of the more common ones that we're seeing both locally in McHenry County, some of our neighboring communities, as well as across the country. You can see they're both in downtown atmospheres, 2 private businesses. There's the one there in Cary, North Carolina, not to be confused with us, but they obviously have a very similar drive to help promote the businesses and give some fresh ideas out there. Utility boxes, there's a lot of controller cabinets that we have throughout the village and along, whether it's traffic signals, streetlight controllers, and so forth. There are wrap products that could be integrated to make the placement of the art on those structures easier to maintain and replace in the event that they wear or unfortunate graffiti incidents occur. We wouldn't be relying upon the artists to come back and repaint the structures. It'd be a simple application of buying another wrap. Sculpture is another common art form seen throughout downtowns across the country. Fort Collins uses a piano theme. They have artists decorate and place them throughout town. You might recall in Chicago they had the cows on parade. So sculpture is definitely another common one that could be integrated. Going back to wraps, vehicles, another aspect that could be done on our fleet. There could be an option to maybe take what was inspired by our cool little project at National Night Out last year on the utility van with the handprints. There could be one that was more permanently applied to some of our vehicles if desired. And then the 3 concepts that we mentioned that could be some of the low-hanging fruit and looked at early on in the process. Downtown, there's several locations, not just the one depicted there, that have opportunities for art, as well as those 2 water and wastewater facilities I mentioned. So this would be an overarching program that would require some logistics to figure out in terms of how the artist selected, the process for that, where it's achieved, the details from the legal end and the partnership end if they're on private property. So it wouldn't be a simple process of just moving forward and let's go and paint. But if the board is supportive of the process, we can start that review and figure out what the logistics could be. And there's a lot of models out there to build upon, and not just from places like Woodstock and McHenry that are doing it now, but across the country. A lot of the smaller cities, mid-sized cities, have really great programs like Indianapolis, Nashville is another one that I've visited myself and seen a lot of the great products that they have there, and they have commissions that have established processes for that we can model off of. So again, just another stopping point. If this is something that the board is supportive of, we can start that process. But if it's not something you want to see in the near term, we can put that on the shelf as a future idea.
Again, this is another private-public partnership. We've reached out to some of the building owners already, and they are like Orchard Meats, Larry Pagnotti's building where Conscious Cup is right now. They are all agreeing. One thing that we have to figure out is they don't want the artwork directly on their building, so we'd have to come up with a panel system. And one of the things that we've talked to with a couple of the businesses downtown that they're up for this, and we'd really like to integrate some of the Cary Grove High School art students into this, and maybe the grade schools, and kind of do something to really continue to promote the community that we all serve. So these are, I think, again, this is something that I think will help with the vital implementation of the rebranded downtown and things. I think it's a great way for the existing businesses throughout the community that could really kind of give back. So I think it's a really cool opportunity for us.
And we do see the water wastewater facilities as maybe a pilot for that, because it gives us obviously a property we control, and maybe just to sample how the logistics would work if it was a school-based project, which especially on the water wastewater side can tie into the opportunities to blend it as an educational outreach. We actually would be able to use this as a credit in our permitting with the EPA in terms of we have outreach requirements for our wastewater plant permits.
Sorry, what kind of requirements?
Outreach requirements.
Got it. So when I was looking at the dollar amount, I think it was like almost $65,000 on about-ish for this. And then when the mayor was talking about private and public, I'd like to look at it more as a private partnership, and then maybe we kind of oversee it or something like that. But I see all the things that we want to do that's a need in Public Works, and I'd rather the finances go majority to that, and then utilize less of the costs to the Public Works of Art. And I heard what you said, Eric, about the outreach for the EPA. So I guess I understand that, but I just don't want to spend as much money.
I would say partially agree with that. As residents, we all pay into 3 different education districts, and every one of those education districts has art programs. So yes, we could be a facilitator for this if we're agreeing to $15,000 to help start this type of program up. I would want to see matching funds, not like all the other programs where we're at 20/80 and we're putting in 20%. We're getting bang for the buck for our residents. If we're funding it almost exclusively or more wholly, if we're funding it, and you mentioned Public Works, I'm still stunned by our road program. We are not going to come anywhere near being where we need to be in our road program. 5 years from now, this is going to be the only thing anybody's talking about because the motor fuel tax fund is not going anywhere but down. So we have a lot of big dollar things. We're looking at $9 million 3 years out, and we have a lot of big things, and all these little pieces, while I agree this is outstanding, and if we've got people already downtown that are interested in the program, outstanding. Let's find a way to find somebody. Let's use our staff to find somebody to help fund that. But we've got some really, really big dollar things coming. And looking backwards, if we're spending $30,000 on uplights, I would feel a little bit disappointed that we're then asking for increases for improving the holes that are in our roads currently.
Right, I think this is a program that we could really sell the public, so that they would take this over if we were to initially facilitate it.
Correct.
Get it going so that there's some oversight.
I agree.
That's a key.
And so I agree with everything that you had said.
Yeah,
But, these are thinking outside the box.
Yeah, I love these programs. I think they're fantastic. The utility box wraps, I recently looked into that. I know there's a few bigger towns, I think Elgin was one of them, where they do like a private partnership, where I think the village just kind of does the ordering of the materials, and so there's not a huge expense on the village's end, it seemed like, to me, just looking at it briefly. But, and then the sculptures I really like. I know there are some towns that have done things before, like painted buffaloes and then moved the buffaloes around. It is fun. So I really like this. I think long-term, it does make like a downtown area more exciting.
And I agree 100%, but I agree we have to look at it holistic with regards to the cost and where the money's going to come from and how we facilitate it and what we can do. But I think there will be a very big buy-in. We have a very talented community of artists in our area, from grade school to high school, from without. And I think if we start a program like that, we will get a lot of buy-in into it. So I'd love to be able to implement something like this without bearing the brunt of the full cost of something like this.
Right. I agree. But it's good to have this on the forefront and start a
Absolutely.
conversation. And if everybody's in agreement that this is something you'd like to see, we could start doing some investigation without spending any
Absolutely.
money.
I definitely would like that.
All it takes is just one nice donor.
Correct.
Just saying.
Okay.
That's something out of curiosity. Could we personally apply to the McHenry County Foundation? They have grants available for things like that. Maybe we look into something like that as well, that they would grant us some money for it.
And I think a lot of the opportunities out there would be to have the proposed project and some of the details lined up so that when seeking those additional outside
Correct.
funds, they know what they're awarding it for. So yeah, part of the process will be kind of like what we do with other infrastructure, making it shovel-ready. We got to make it paintbrush-ready.
I agree.
Right, the donors, when we were entertaining the initial donor from the Glenickies, all the meetings that I had with them, they always wanted to know what the project was and what the cost is. They'd like to see what the final product is going to be, what it will all look like, and what's the cost associated. So you can, throw that out. There could be a couple different variations that we could throw out, to the community foundation and see if that's something that somebody wants to jump on board with. But
Or our
that's a
local
great-
businesses, some of our larger local businesses may be very interested in partnering with us to do something like that.
But there has to be,
Taking the
I guess I need to make myself clear, there has to be some oversight.
Correct.
And I think that we need to be the lead in this. So, you know, we're just not going to let anything happen on anything. We need to be the lead agency in this.
Okay, thank you. I think we have some good direction there. And then again, this is repeating the slide we showed at the beginning. Just again noting this is going to be, all things considered, one of the busiest capital program years we've ever had in the village. And then we have a lot of exciting projects, both in construction and design. I know it's going to be a big responsibility for staff, but we have, I think, some great talent here to make this stuff become reality. So we're excited to move forward on a lot of these projects and appreciate the feedback you've given us so far. And then, that being said, we'll get into the numbers part, which I know is Kelly's favorite part, which is why I'm going to let her kick it off.
Makes my palms sweat.
Mine too, no. So here we have a good summary of everything, you know, that we've looked through in all the slides that staff has put together. Top, all the fiscal years, left-hand side, the funds, and the proposed costs of the CIP across the village for the next 5 fiscal years. Over towards the right-hand side, we have our 5-year total costs and our 5-year projected funding and funding sources. So an estimated, you know, 5-year recommended expenditures of about $46 million. One thing I want to point out, I know we've talked, you know, a few times here today about the upcoming water and sewer rate study that's going to be presented on March 7th. You'll see there in the 5-year total cost of about $30 million that were recommended for the CIP that was put into that sewer study, with the projected funding of about $25 million during those discussions, during our water and sewer rate study discussions. There is potential to utilize some very low interest loans to bridge that gap.
Yes, it's Kelly's point. Yes, it looks imbalanced, but it really isn't because it is factoring in the leverage of things like that state revolving loans for those water and sanitation projects. And we're not unique in this regard to any municipality. With capital improvements, you're always going to have more ideas and more capital needs and wants. So I don't want the imbalance to set off too many alarms because it is normal. We're always going to have to balance what we're going to move forward on capital-wise. That being said, though, there are certain areas where there are some imbalances, like Trustee Walworth astutely mentioned. Road infrastructure, just given the current available funding resource for that is one. Land conservancy, there is a finite amount of money in that to maintain operations moving forward. If we want more capital improvements, they have to come from a source. Commuter parking fund, we have a revenue source, but obviously it has been reset to a new normal, so we have to adjust to that to make sure we can plan for capital improvements there. So we're in a very and you'll see this in the next workshop. The Village of Cary is in a very good position financially, especially on the operations and maintenance end. And you'll see some very good highlights and news about that in our next workshop. But capital-wise, again, we're also in a very good position. We're able to take a lot of the vision we've had in several past CIPs and turn those great pictures and ideas into reality. And especially the next 24 months, you're going to see a really good example of that traction we've had from taking this vision of the board and the community to something we can actually touch and enjoy. But that's why with the next slide, we just want to remind the board that we do have some of the things to consider. Kelly?
Yeah, so you have all seen this slide in the past, but again, just to show some of the options that the Village of Cary is currently not utilizing of different revenue sources for future consideration and discussion.
Can I just ask a question about the previous slide?
Mm-hmm.
So where it says capital projects, the funding source is none, is that previously Meyer Material was funding that? And then what have we been funding it with since then?
It's been funded with transfers from the general fund.
Okay, thank you.
And that's why we kept it as 0, because we don't want to have to rely on the general fund transfers.
Right.
Any questions?
The only thing I'll say is, as far as the taxes go, I mean, I still would be interested in like the places to eat tax if we're gonna look at anything. I know that's relatively common in probably our neighboring towns.
Yeah.
So.
One of the things too, I know it's never good to talk about these things, but there's a lot of the other, the non-home rule sales tax. That's a kind of a use tax that everybody that comes into the town, that shops in our town, will pay that. You know, those are things like the places for eating tax, that'll be a big burden on us because we, if I'm not mistaken, that's something that we have to collect. And so that's a whole new accounting thing, and we'd have to rely on our sales tax or the eating places to, you know, give us that money. But I'm not making any huge suggestions, but there's a lot of the other municipalities are considering this because of, you know, how funds are drying up. You know, the motor, like you had mentioned before, the motor fuel tax is dropping. You know, but you know, we're working with the state on trying to work on different ways, and because of the electric vehicles that are out there, they're not paying a dime to our motor fuel tax. They're not paying a dime because they're driving right past our gas station. So we're trying to figure out a way, and you know, coming together with some, you know, sustainable solutions that would level the playing field for those that are using EVs, and you know, whether it's through licensing. You know, we're not proponents of mileage. I think that's just ridiculous. But there's got to be a way to level the playing field, because it's, you know, everybody that goes to the gas station, you know, we get the fuel tax on that. But it's, you know, I think that is something that we really need to keep our eye on. And you know, the state is now mandating too that we have EV charging stations. You know, and who's paying for that? You know, how are we going to be able to continue to do this again, to allow people to use our roads without paying anything to drive on our roads? So these are things that we're working on, you know, regionally.
Can you give me an example of a non-home rule sales tax? Is that just tax on anything like at the dollar store, anywhere that's, okay?
Yep.
So how would that be different from collecting the money than the places for eating tax?
The sales tax would come from the state of Illinois. They collect it, and then we would get reimbursed for that. The places for eating tax, that would fall under Kelly's jurisdiction to collect those fees.
Can you explain to me, Kelly, how we would collect them? How difficult is it to collect them? Because, I mean, other towns are doing it, so.
Yeah, and we have some research and looking into some of the other towns, so I can get back to you on that part of the difficulty of collecting
Okay.
it, and their complications of doing so. But, right, it is us then collecting that money, so.
Because I do agree with Trustee Cavelli, looking at it as more of a luxury tax. And I do like the non-home rule sales tax too. But the things that are a need for people like gas and things like that, I'm not in favor of, just voicing my opinion.
Well, the benefit, you know, it's always, it's never easy to have these discussions, but that's what we're charged with. We need to have these discussions, how we're going to fund these future projects. You know, we could, as a board, say if we institute a non-home rule sales tax, that is a revenue stream to fund roads. Only that money will go towards funding our road program. And anybody that drives through the village of Cary that may live in Fox River Grove or Crystal Lake or any of the surrounding communities, they stop at any of our stores, we're going to capture that tax, not just our residents. Because I believe we're one of the lowest sales taxing municipalities. Everybody's like around the 8.25%. We're at what, 7? 7. So there is a little bit of a room for that, and we'd still be competitive. But that's, you know, I guess we're always looking at the property tax issue. And if we can keep our expenditures off property taxes and put that, the additional revenues that we may need on the general people that come to the municipality, that would be the easiest way to do that.
I think when we're speaking of, first and foremost, anything new, which nobody really in general cares for, it's imperative on us to have some data before we do it. Because we can discuss places for eating taxes as an example, but how many restaurants do we have in town? 8, 10?
Oh, we've got a lot more
Okay,
than
what,
that.
well, conceptually.
Yeah.
Versus actual retail collecting facilities, there is no comparison.
Right.
So until we would actually see potential projections, not holding anybody's feet to fire, and realizing that a natural gas utility tax would only fulfill X amount of dollars, whereas a stormwater user fee would only fulfill, so it would then say, okay, the biggest impact we can make is option C. The least impactful from a financial standpoint is option B. So then we can begin to have discussions about the things that are actually gonna move the needle. If a municipal screaming tax is only gonna net us $100,000 a year, oh, wait a minute, we're looking at $1.6 million we need just for the roads to maintain it at a C-plus level. Let me say that again, we're at a C-plus level for our roads, and we need to find $1.6 million to keep it there. So looking at things that are gonna raise the revenues for the municipality by just a couple of grand here and there aren't really worth considering. So we've got big dollar problems coming, and we need to look at big dollar solutions, and we need to know what each of these options might provide.
Yeah, and we
And
can
I think
certainly.
go ahead.
Sorry, no. I was gonna say it too, right, if the board, wants to consider any of these things, we can certainly, in the finance department, put together projections for these, options.
And I think in the past, we've seen slides like that. too. Yep, okay. Good-
And I
good point.
I agree, we definitely need to do that. The last thing that would happen with our roads is what's happened to some of our neighbors, where they had to come in and put a big, referendum to get their roads up to speed. Then it's gonna cost a lot more. We've looked at that, saying if we maintain it versus we let it slide, the cost doubles the longer it goes. We also, one thing we didn't talk about is that we will have an additional source of income once we have the dispensary open. I mean, I think at some point as a board, we need to discuss where we want that money to go to, whether we split it between capital projects and roads, or all roads, or whatever it is, but we need to be looking at that as well. And again, we don't know what that's going to be. It's projected, but a lot of this is projected, but we know something will be coming from that. And I think we need to be prudent about what we're going to do and how we're going to allocate those funds.
And yes, exactly. That I like what we're hearing. That there needs to be a holistic approach, and we need to balance all the different impacts with any of these options. And I say all the impacts. That's not just the dollars and cents are important, but then the side effects that it might have on economic development. We keep say that over and over again, but it is a very, very strong need to obviously preserve the vitality of our current businesses and also encourage future businesses. But any impacts that might result there, we will make sure that we are fully aware of those.
And we look at the return on the investment, right? We look at an ROI if you do something from as we're doing our downtown streetscaping, and then we say, how else can we enhance things? Some of it's just kind of like someone marketing their home. It's curb appeal. We want to look at curb appeal, so when people come into Cary, that's going to generate more people to invest in Cary. So that's why I think we have to look at, overall, what's going to be the return if we spend money here? Are we going to see some positive impact down the road with future investments, future developers, things of that nature?
Right. Well, as you all know, with the past surveys that we've done, out of the top 5, usually number 1 is roads. So a way that we could, for the lack of another word, sell the community on a non-home rule sales tax, for example, say that any money that we receive from that goes right to our road program, period. It doesn't go to operational expenses at all. This is going to be a dedicated revenue source for our roads. And I think people would understand that. And remember, it's only like 0.5% of the sales. Am I right about that? And that can add up. Those numbers add up.
Well, I
So-
think as Trustee Waller said, that we need to look at some of those numbers, and then we can make a very well-informed decision.
When will we have the discussion about where dispensary funds go?
We could probably have that at a future committee meeting, or we could talk about it during the budget meeting next.
I think it's important.
Yeah, I do too.
When are they projected to be open and running?
Last I heard, late fall.
Oh, wow. So this calendar year? Okay.
Any other discussions on this?
Great job. Awesome job to everybody.
Yeah, well done, Eric.
No, the staff should take the credit. It's a
No,
it's
it's
a big
fine.
process to put forward, but we appreciate the very candid feedback, and we will make some adjustments and notes here, and then we will build upon this momentum and continue that discussion on March 25th for round 2.
Thank you all for everything. It's great to see the whole team here. Everybody's bright and shiny this morning. Tim did a great job. Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned
We want to stay.
at 11:09. it's, yeah, it's, you never like to,